All right. Well, it's really great to be here. I'm Trevor Maxfield, like Eric said. I'm a fifth-year PhD in ICME. I work with Ron Fedko on computer science. My ICME journey started during COVID, alone in my sad little apartment in the graduate housing. So it's been really cool to kind of hear about the long and storied history that exists here and kind of get a cool glance into the past for things that were maybe not going on during COVID. So starting off with the panel, I was wondering if each of you could just talk a little bit, give an introduction, and talk about your career journey and how ICME has helped you get to where you are today. And we can let's start from the far side.
Can you hear me? Oh. Yeah, so my name is Chris Mays. I joined ICME in 2005, which I think was the second year. And Tony talked a little bit about, you need to have, something, a culture around ICME. And so I was told to go to ICME because I was really interested in numerical linear algebra. So I joined, and probably my second week, Gene had a seminar, and he then invited me afterwards, after the seminar, to kind of go and meet the speaker, and that kind of started this really great kind of community at ICME. So I was at ICME until 2010, working with Michael Saunders on linear programming and quadratic programming. And I guess I'm a little bit of a one-trick pony because every job I've done, I've either written a LP or QP solver or worked on one. And so after graduating from ICME, I was the first engineer after the founders at a company called Gurobi, which makes mixed integer programming and linear and quadratic programming solvers. Then I really enjoyed kind of, using my applied math skills on a variety of different problems. But I wanted to kind of be more tied to an application area. I left Gurobi and joined Apple in 2016, working on a special project for robotics, and was very happy there to write some solvers that got used inside some robotic systems, and then joined NVIDIA in 2022, and again had a really fun time writing a solver, again, this time for model predictive controls problems. And so I kind of had this fun aspect of, writing these solvers, using my ICME background, and then kind of growing a team around them. So that's always been a really fun experience. Yeah.
Hello, I'm Shervin, French-Iranian, born and raised in Paris, in France. I did my studies in a university in France called Centrale. It's a university that's very centered around general engineering, and it's something that I loved there. I got very interested in machine learning there. I got to work with very interesting research folks. And to me, ICME was the perfect blend between excellence in math and then CS. So this was like the perfect place for me to apply to, and I was very glad to be able to come here. And this mix has been something of high interest to me, and I've been able to pursue studies in this ML world. And I'm going to touch on something that Margot has mentioned in her speech, and I really loved the fact that ICME encourages its students to pursue activities on campus that are aligned with their growth. And I was able to enjoy being a TA for many of these ML-related classes, and it was something that the Institute encouraged a lot, and I feel it's something that helped me grow as a person, and hearing what other students thought about the topics, how they learned, both helped me ground my knowledge and also be more connected. And then with my twin brother, who's sitting here, we wrote together a set of notes that we really enjoyed writing. So it's some anecdote that we kept on going, and then at the end, I joined Google in 19, and I joined the assistant team, which was very much centered on these ML topics of ranking. And more recently, I've joined the Gemini team at Google, so very much centered on LLMs, so the latest trends. And thanks to very smart folks here, and I've had the chance with Afshin as well to stay connected to the department very much by like teaching a workshop on LLMs as well. Yeah, so great to meet you all.
Hi everyone, I'm Reza Zadeh. It's so good to see so many familiar faces. It's an absolute joy. So I've been at ICME since 2010. Since 2010, I was a PhD student in Margot's inaugural directorship class. She was wonderful, and it's so wonderful to be able to see so many folks that I've interacted with throughout the years and learning about what came before 2010. So after I graduated, I helped start Databricks, which is now a very big company, and then I started Matroid, which is a visual inspection company. We are inspecting all the rocket ships you've seen go up to space and sometimes come back, a lot of high-end cars that you see driving around, and many airplanes that are more recently manufactured. We deploy computer vision is what we do. Is the product makes it super simple to deploy computer vision for factories and a lot of other and a lot of big industrial operations. Since I teach one class here now that I created, CME 323. I teach that once every 2 years, and it's an honor to still be able to contribute back, and it's wonderful to be back amongst friends.
Hi, I'm Danielle Maddox, and also really great to be back here. So many good memories. I had the pleasure of working with Margot in my PhD, which really shaped my whole career and really new way of learning research and how to think. And also, I love teaching and mentoring the students and giving that back, so that's one of my favorite things in my current role. I did my bachelor's in applied math at Berkeley and found I really loved numerical analysis and numerical PDEs, and then luckily met Margot, which brought me here, and I got to continue that research here, which was really life-changing for me. And it's so great to be back and just think of the memories with her and Jim and Michael as well. My grandpa was like ICME's grandpa, so shout out to him as well. He never missed a single research event. But after graduating in 2018, I joined AWS AI Labs, where I kind of shift gears into machine learning since my thesis was in numerical PDEs. But what I feel really grateful for the education here was that at the core, to be able to kind of jump fields like that was learning, having a core math background as well as optimization in a lot of the core classes that I learned here. And I was working on time series forecasting, and in the last several years, I've been leading an initiative of using deep learning for weather forecasting. So trying to go back to some of the PD knowledge, can we bridge the gap between numerical analysis and machine learning for applications to the sciences? In particular, trying to bring in some numerical PDs and conservation laws. So something I've been passionate about is mentoring the summer interns that I've had and students and continuing this research.
Hi, everybody. So I'm Leilani Gilpin. It's also great to be back. So I started in ICME in 2011. I graduated with my master's in 2013. And after that, I went and I worked at Xerox PARC, not too far, just down the road, where I started working on fraud detection in healthcare, using a lot of the tools that I learned in ICME. And one of the big problems that we were thinking about before it became a really hot field was thinking about explainability. It's very important that if you deny someone a prescription, you have to tell them why. And that's largely what led me to my PhD journey, where I went to MIT. I was in computer science, where I was working on explainability in complex systems, so especially self-driving cars. Spent 5 years there, and then spent a year at Sony AI, working on Gran Turismo. And more recently, I joined the faculty at UC Santa Cruz in 2021, where my lab is focused on AI explainability and accountability. We still work a lot on self-driving cars, so we work on time series data. We work on a lot of qualitative reasoning, discrete math, et cetera. And we also think about how that can also affect policy. So.
Great. Thank you all so much. I think this group really well represents the kind of breadth that ICME offers. And a couple of you touched on culture, and I like to think that it's still alive and well in ICME. Going back through the same order, maybe could you talk a little bit about the most impactful experience during your time in ICME? Maybe in how your time here determined your career path, or maybe what you didn't want in a career path. Maybe the way you've approached tough problems in your career, or perhaps just how about you think about the world.
Oh man, that's a tough one. Yeah, I mean, I think ICME certainly laid a foundation for how I think about just computational math in general. Certainly those core classes which covered the graph theory and linear algebra and optimization really impacted me. And so that was kind of a major turning point for me. And also, I think I kind of found my love of optimization here. So until I took Walter Murray's class, I didn't really, I was just interested in some numerical analysis, numerical linear algebra, and then it opened up a whole new field. So yeah, it was, I think, kind of those core classes and studying for them and preparing for the qualifying exams really, it gave me like a strong foundation that I have really enjoyed.
This was a great answer. I'm going to touch on a very different part. I think ICME really exposed me to interacting with very brilliant people, and like the opportunities it gives, especially in terms of interaction with other folks, emphasize how much being people-oriented is key to success. Just to give a very grounded example at work, so from one day to another, you see technological shifts, and then all of a sudden you need to work on something new, and then our org has seen something like this where the same set of people get to work from scratch on something else, and then we saw incredible progress in very short amount of time. And then there, being able to relate to other people and then to be able to communicate what you want to do is key. And I feel it's something that ICME has taught me through propelling its students to have these teaching activities, being able to collaborate on these highly scientific topics. And I think it's something that matters a lot. And I got to learn more and more about it as the years passed.
So it gets harder and harder as you go to add to what the other folks are saying. But there's one thing that certainly everything that the others said rings true. And then on top of that, so we're in the boundary of mathematics and engineering. There's always a good question of what should be studied in a university and what should make it all the way to engineering and then to industry. And what ICME really helped me learn by teaching me about both was what projects and engineering projects should be living in a university versus an industry. We're all now familiar with machine learning, deep learning. What parts of that should live in a university, and what parts of it should be in a lab or even in an engineering team in a company, in a big company? Typically, the answer relates to how long you expect the thing to be around for. So if you expect the thing, this project that is being worked on, if it's going to be around for more than 20 years, it should be taught in a university, and if it's going to take more than 10 years to discover, it should be researched in a university. If it's going to take less than 10 years to discover, there might be a place for it in industry. And if it's going to not be around in 20 years, you shouldn't be teaching it in a university. So these are some of the things that I at least crystallized while I was here. And there's way more to it than that. That's an oversimplification. But ICME is one of the few places where you get to see that boundary pretty crisply and clearly.
I think that's a great point, what everyone said so far. The whole experience was great from the beginning, with forming our cohort, taking the core classes, really getting to learn together and see how each of us thought, brainstorming on the whiteboard, and being mentored by such amazing faculty. Linear algebra was one of my favorite classes, so that was kind of the first 2 years. And then taking that further and going into research, I feel like really helped me with the core job skill, which is handling ambiguity, just really wanting to solve a problem that hasn't been solved before, and giving us that skill to just break down and really drill into it, and always find that don't give up, even if it seems hard, there is a solution, and to kind of be creative. And I feel like that was really fostered here, which was great.
Yeah, I'll keep it short. I think I echo what everyone else said already. But I think one of the other great areas was just to collaborate with the first year cohort that we had in the core classes. Everyone came from a very different background, and I think brought a bunch of different strengths. And when we would be in ICME late at night working on problems, we had people who had backgrounds in engineering who had a way of solving a problem, people with backgrounds in computer science who had a way of solving the problems, and then people with math backgrounds and everything else. And I think that was just a really great memory of trying to collaborate with different people with different backgrounds to try and solve some of these tough problems.
Right. One more, are we good? Yeah, Eric's telling me we have to hurry. So I love those answers. I love the cohort aspect. That really changed my whole experience here. So I really echo that. But really quick, I'd love to just quickly hear your favorite memory in ICME. It's okay to steal somebody else's as we go through, since Eric's telling us we really have to hurry. But I do want to hear your favorite memories.
So I have a favorite memory of Esteban, who was a second year when we were first years, and basically Esteban sat with us and helped us through all the core classes and taught us graph theory and everything, and so really appreciated Esteban's help as a second year to all our first year students.
The sense of family. I feel Stanford is a big place, and anything could happen everywhere. Everyone is busy, and yet all the ICME students would gather in Huang together, go through exams together, write problem sets together, get to know about each other's research. And I got to know some very interesting folks like beyond my cohort. I do have strong relationships with people who are like way before me, even today in the industry, with whom I've kept close contacts. I talk to them every month, for example. And I feel this sense of family and unity is very rare, exceptionally, especially in environment like ours, where you have like a lot of people with common interests. And I feel ICME has been able to stay very much authentic while being in the excellence field. Yeah.
So, small story. I fell in love with Stanford in 2005 and 6. I was an intern at Google on the machine translation team working on language models. I took my bike from Google campus back then, came here, went on Palm Drive, couldn't find any university buildings, thinking I was in the wrong place until I biked for a long time until Palm Drive finished and I saw the buildings. And then I'm like, I gotta go here. This is a wonderful place. And so probably my favorite memory of ICME is when I got a call from Indira saying, Walter Murray is kind of interested in talking to you. You may have been admitted. That's actually like one of the all-time happiest times of my life. So really appreciate being here, and it's a wonderful place, absolutely.
Great, thank you. Yes, it's so hard to pick. I mean, there's so many good memories, like we said, from brainstorming with the cohorts and then working with Margot and the research associate work with Louise on the problems. But definitely, I think, echoing what the other panelists said about family, it's the sense of true family that we got in ICME. And favorite memory was probably my Margot going very special for my grandfather and having him graduate with us. He got his PhD in grandfathering, but it was a very special memory and just shows how much family it really was. We called him up there and had him in the gown. So that was a great memory for me.
I think I'll mention one thing that wasn't said. I'm actually surprised were the Friday socials. I think are some of my best memories. And I remember one quarter, Carrie Ann and I were in charge of getting the snacks and drinks, which was extra fun. So
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much. This was really cool to hear.
Thank you for sticking with us to the very end. I'm sure you. Yeah.
Close.
Okay. I'm sure you won't regret it. So this is, we have 5 members of that Sarah House gang, and pre-Sarah House gang. They probably each have their own things to say. But before that, I sort of said maybe a general question. You don't have to each answer them. Is like, what's the part of this experience that you had at Stanford, upon reflection, given your whole career, that you think is most valuable? Perhaps if you can roll back the clock, what you wish you have done more, But lastly, I think most important is that what advice, inspiration you can give to the younger people in the crowd. That's sort of a general question, but each one of you don't feel obligated to answer them. You have something to say. So let me start by going through the most senior person first, and then go down that. I think it will be Cleve, and then probably Rob, and then Bill and Eric.
Nick is the youngest one.
He's the youngest. He already admitted. He's the youngest. Okay, so we'll go like that. So Cleve, as you know, Cleve is up there. But yeah, so he's the chairman and founder of Network, but he did many things in linear algebra, and I mentioned LinPack and so on. So Cleve, please.
Okay, hi everybody. Great to be here. Many members of Stanford. Too many to ever talk about. Let me brag a little bit about MATLAB. MATLAB was an important event in the history of MATLAB. Was a numerical analysis course during 1979, 1980. I taught the course. Half the students were from all you were in that course. Yeah, all these guys were in the course except Rob.
I had left already.
And you see,
not C++.
Well, you must have done pretty well. Anyway, I had this Fortran MATLAB, which I had written. It's just a simple matrix calculator, not a programming language. I used it in that class. They were not impressed because they were getting, it wasn't great numerical, it wasn't research in numerical analysis, it wasn't research in computer science. But the engineers that took the course loved MATLAB. One of them, whose name I can't remember, took MATLAB over to Page Mill Road, where John Little, then known as John, now Jack Little, used it, started it at his consulting, and we went on to found MathWorks, Little and I. We have now 7,000 people working for the company. I don't know how many million users we have, and it's been an amazing. None of us have ever expected it, and it started here in Sarah House.
Great. Yeah. I had left Stanford already when you gave that course, but I was one of the first users. I remember the householder meeting in Waterloo, 1984. You reviewed this new C++ or C version of MATLAB.
You were one of the reasons we put sparse matrices in MATLAB.
Okay. All right. So Rob, you were not a student here, okay, as I explained.
I never had an office in Sarah House.
Oh,
but
right?
I interviewed there and then arrived here September 79. We had moved to Margaret Jack's.
Yeah. But, Rob, as I mentioned, got his PhD at the other school at Yale. But he has been with industry for a long time. Longest time was with Hewlett-Packard. And then more recently with Cerebras, which is one of the revolutionizing computer hardware company, giving NVIDIA a run for the money. Please.
You remember Betty Davis at the beginning of some famous movie saying, "Hang on, guys, it's going to be a wild ride." That's my career in computer startups.
Saxby. There's also Saxby, I remember.
NASPAR, yeah. Well, let me say about, first of all, Cleve's my advisor's advisor. I have two. My tree goes Harvard and Stanford. I've been to Harvard maybe once, and I've been to Stanford a bazillion times. So I'm not dissing Harvard or anything, but
okay.
Stanford has had the
Sorry,
impact. I taught here for 5 years, and I loved the teaching. It was my first experience, and I took it with me. So, even though I've been in industry, you have a lot of opportunity to teach, as Eric seems to agree with, and I do it whenever I can. I didn't do the same thing at Caltech, where I met Tony, as I had done at Yale, and I didn't do the same thing here as I had done at Caltech, and I got into this new thing, parallel computing. I was at a meeting with Jack Dongari in '83, and I said, what do you think? Are we making a mistake by doing this parallel computing thing? And the answer was, maybe, but it's fun. So you get a toehold. You should get a toehold like that, something you can then, step up the ladder based on that. So take the Stanford experience with you. The atmosphere here is maybe not unique, but it's not common at all in academia. The congeniality, the collegiality, the fun, the cooperativeness. So take it with you. I want to talk about Joe Oliger. I mean, Gene gets deservedly a great deal of credit. Joe Oliger was a generous, warm, fun, great, outgoing person. And he was the advisor of Nick and Randy Levesque, Marcia Berger, and others. He changed my life. I came up to him and said, I was 30. I needed some way to stay fit. Joe, I need some way to stay fit. Oh, he says, I'm a member of the Palo Alto Adult Soccer League. Yeah. 40 years later, I gave up soccer as my knees had been worn out by 40 years of soccer.
He's been refereeing big-time soccer for years and years.
Yeah. Great. So Stanford's had a huge impact. If I look over my resume, there are a lot of papers. About 80 or 90% of them have someone who was a Stanford student as a co-author. Not all in numerical analysis, but it's a gift.
Okay. So maybe I come to Bill next. So Bill and I had the same advisor, Joe Oliger, you heard, and he and I were undergrads at Caltech, but we didn't know each other back then.
That's right.
But I always admired Bill's career, as you can tell. After Stanford, he went to Bell Labs, and then he became the head of the legendary Math and Computer Science Division. I mean, this is where you had Turing Awards, and you have Unix, all that stuff came from there, okay? And I remember you were coming to the Bay Area to set up Lucent West. I don't know whether you want to talk about that, okay? Then a little later on, of course, he worked with this startup.
Some projects fail, by the way.
He worked for this little known company called Google before he went public. I remember, and then now, of course, now he's in Sandy Row, the one that turned right with Sequoia. Please.
Yeah, I guess the thing that I remember about Stanford is the wonderful cohort of both faculty and students. I think a number of us bonded together, and some of us have ended up intersecting and working together along the way. I guess I did not take a linear career path, as I think Tony's alluding to. I did my thesis work in PDEs. And early on, I did some things in semiconductor modeling and other things that were PDE related. But then I started to do other things. And then unfortunately, I think I discovered I was better as a bureaucrat than as a research scientist. And Tony's right. I ended up being a leader in the computer science groups at Bell Labs. Came out here, did a startup where another person and I co-founded a startup, but I ended up joining Google in early 2003 and became the leader of more than half the engineering there for a number of years. One of the things I think as you think about what you do and as your career evolves, the ability to deal with new situations and learn things is so important. I always am amused. I was responsible for Google.com for a number of years. When I joined Google, I didn't know what a web service was. And yet somehow I managed to navigate my way through that. And Tony's right, I've now joined the dark side. I've been doing venture capital for the last 12 or 13 years, so yet another jog. But looking for opportunities to do different things and learn new things, I think is very important.
Yeah, that's very good advice. Okay, so let me go to Eric. He's wearing the Sarah House, T-shirt. Also Bell Labs, also Google, but you have other thing about the life in Sarah House that you want to talk about, I know. Yeah.
Well, a couple things. So first, I've felt really blessed to, through the career, be a part of a group of people that were very talented and nice people that I just enjoyed working with. So Sarah House definitely was that first example. And I'm delighted to hear from talking with folks here that, there is a successor that is still like that. And I was able to then go to Bell Labs, drag Bill along with me, and find a similar kind of tight community of people with lots of different interests, but that got along together, very collegial, as you say. Even at the management level, very collegial. That was great. And then followed all my friends from Bell Labs who were moving to the West Coast to join Google. And again, found a very talented team to be part of. So to the students here, my first comment is you made the first great choice in your life by picking ICME and coming here and joining a group that's of that kind. And when you graduate from here, think hard about where you're going so that you're going to join a group like that. So that's sort of my first observation. The second one, just to be a little different than other things people have commented on, you mentioned the connections of the Sarah House team with the different parts of Stanford. One of them that was just almost a footnote was John Claerbout's team within geosciences. And you would think that would have been important because they were solving PDEs or something, but no, actually, what was interesting was Bill and I had been taking a systems course from Forrest Basket here, and when he talked about Unix, I just thought, wow, that is so cool. Remember, we're talking way back in 1976, before almost anybody here was born, I suspect. So I found that really intriguing. And I discovered over in the math library, there was somebody who was collecting all the CS technical reports, so I could read a little about the cool style in which they were programming and using computers before Brian got all his books out to sort of teach the whole world. So that also intrigued me. And I must have mentioned it to somebody in Sarah House who said, well, John Claerbout over in the geosciences building has one of these Unix machines. He's got a PDP-11. Go talk to so-and-so who's this sysadmin. And I wandered over there, and he said, oh, sure, I'll give you an account here. And he assigned me a problem. So, find all the next 20 Friday the 13th or something. And that was a good exercise. So I loved that enough that's what persuaded me to then go be a summer student at Bell Labs. And if you students don't know, when you go be a summer student somewhere, that's really kind of your job interview in both directions. You get to find out whether that is the group of people you want to be with, and they get to find out if they want you back. Because in an interview for one day, yeah. But if you're there for a summer, that's long enough to tell. So those are my comments.
Thank you, Eric. So we're coming to the youngest member of the panel. So we had the same advisor. I think we overlap at the Sarah House for one semester. But I feel like I know you. I remember the title of your thesis even, but you can go into that. But I think you and I were the two members here that stay academic all the way. And I stray into administration, but you stay a true academic. But I think Nick is one of the most highly decorated academics among us. He's a fellow of the Royal Society. He's a member of the National Academy of Science or Engineering. He's been with Cornell, MIT, and Harvard. I mean, he has written, I don't know how many books, probably 6 or 7 books.
Maybe 8.
Okay, I underestimated it. So, I mean, he's really one of the most highly decorated. So I'm very proud to be his older academic brother. So what do you want to say to this group?
The first thing I want to say is the next summer, Rob persuaded me and Randy Levesque to join the Palo Alto Soccer League. And 6 weeks later, I stopped playing soccer, and I've never played it since. Thank you, Rob. I wanted to say something, actually springing largely from yesterday's talks, which were an exposure to the way you all live and the way science is now, very much aiming at the kids in the room. So raise your hand if you're currently a student. Oh, plenty. Okay. So just to take you back to the olden days, so when we were students in Sarah House, basically we were doing PhDs in computer science. So we took a bunch of courses and we passed the comprehensive exam. And then we did our work, and our work consisted of developing a new algorithm and experimenting with it in Fortran and proving a theorem or two. And then we would give talks, and talks consisted of writing stuff on transparencies and showing them to people. So that was our life. Let me now talk about what things are like today, as exemplified yesterday. I have to tell you that for some of us old-timers, it's terrifying to see the world you are all growing up in because of how much is expected of you. So think of any of the fabulous talks yesterday. First of all, just at the multimedia level, you know, every slide has 14 things on it, and some of those things are movies. You know, things are moving all the time. So technically, that kind of stuff is way advanced. But intellectually, what you have to do is just much, much broader than we had to do. First of all, in ICME, you have to take courses in many areas. To be respectable outputs of this place, you have to know something about engineering, about computer science, about physics, about mathematics, about statistics. It's just incredible how much you're expected to do. And then in terms of your research, this is where some of us oldies really get scared. You're expected to bring in tools from all over the world. You're supposed to know something about high-performance computing and GPUs. You're supposed to be fluent in 4 programming languages. I was fluent in Fortran. You know, you're supposed to know uncertainty quantification. You know, every problem, you don't do the problem, you turn it into a Bayesian framework or make it an inverse problem. Everything has gone up a few levels. And that's not to mention machine learning. Of course, all of you have your core interest, and then you're supposed to tack onto that machine learning. It's kind of terrifying for me, and my reactions to all this are very mixed, because on the one hand, I think it's intellectually a little too much. A typical talk, as we heard yesterday, which is the way the world is now, it's too much. On the other hand, I'm genuinely amazed at all this stuff going on in our world today and how you manage to bring all those things in. So what I wanted to say by way of lesson to the young, in order to have fulfilling good lives and careers, there's no doubt you have to do more than we had to do. You've got to pay attention to more than we had to pay attention to. But the other thing is, ideas still matter. You don't have to give the talk with the most stuff on the slides. It's okay if you're kind of average or even a little below average in how many glitzy things are on your slides. But the ideas really matter. Now, you can have a good career without ideas. I know many people. But if you want to have a really good career, and I mean both in the sense of success and in the sense of satisfaction, the ideas matter also. So don't be ashamed of pursuing the ideas that are exciting for you.
Thank you. Great advice. But to be fair to us old-timers, the tools available to us back then was nothing like what you have. Remember, we did not even have laptops, personal computers. We did not have PowerPoint. We did not have MATLAB, really, right? When I was there, MATLAB was still being developed. So, but today, you have all these tools, and it's second nature to you. So I think Nick is correct. I have one general. Okay, Cleve, you want to say something?
I didn't have MATLAB either in the beginning.
Punched cards.
Punch cards.
Paper tape.
So if you haven't dropped a box of punch cards, you have not done that. So you have done that, right? Now I have one question I want to ask all of you. I felt for me, I learned as much from the fellow students as I learned from the professors. I mean, both are important, okay? So maybe some of you can mention this, comment on some of these aspects. Not only in my own areas, right? So, like Bill and I have the same advisor, but, it's not like I learned from me, you learn from me. Eric and I, we were office mates. And we wrote at least 1 or 2 papers together in completely different areas. So anybody want to comment on this aspect?
George Forsyth said, about teaching, he says, we're going to teach you what we know and then get out of your way. So, you learn from your students. You learn more from the students than you do from the faculty. It's very important. The people you're meeting here every day, you'll remember. And that's the important thing for you.
Eric, you want to comment on this?
I guess I can tell one story. So Sarah House had this kitchen, as was described, and we didn't really like doing all our computing on punch cards, so we put a little energy into getting a little better terminal. This was still sprocket feed paper and stuff. I mean, this was still old days, but it was a step up from punch cards. And I remember needing to go into the kitchen and do a little discrete simulation because Gene Golub had assigned me the task at a Gatlinburg conference of putting the name tags out at all the circular tables like this. And every meal, I would put out a new arrangement of these cards, and I had randomized this so that, it was fair and people would not just sit with their friends, they would meet new people. Seemed like a good algorithm. And somebody there complained to me, this isn't random. I sat next at the same table with this person at breakfast. And I thought, well, I know it's random because I did it. But it's an interesting question. In a size of a meeting like the Gatlinburg conference, would that happen or not? Does he have a valid observational point that couldn't have been random, So I went back and I did some simulation and I was trying some things. And so I come back, walking back from the kitchen to the office I shared with Tony, carrying this long strip of paper with, what I've accumulated. And as I'm walking past Nick's desk, he says, oh, why is that converging to e to the -2? Huh? And I thought, man, the level of talent in this Sarah House student community is just astonishing. And he was right. It clearly was converging to e to the -2. I had no clue how. But we had some friends in the theory side of the department, and Bengt Asphalt said, I think I have an idea how we could do that. And he actually wound up publishing a paper on why this thing converged to e to the -2. It was just a wonderful time and so much we could learn from each other.
Yeah, actually, Eric, your comment reminded me. So that was the Gatlinburg at Asiloma, right? In Monterey, Carmel. And I was there. That was the year I was about to graduate. So there was a photograph of you and me sitting at the registration table. I had long hair, bell-bottom pants, okay? And that was a great experience for me. Because, Gatlinburg meeting now is called a householder meeting. Really, all the big shots were there, okay? And to more than the meeting, I remember at dinner, I sat next to David or Garrett Burkhoff. Which one? Garrett, I think, right? David is the father. And boy, this is a very imposing, intimidating person. He's like the senior person. He wrote a book, and we all read it. And so the other one was, during the breaks, we played ping pong. Who's the person, Varga. He also wrote a book. And he was an excellent ping pong player. He was on the Harvard team. He beat me. So I thought I was pretty good, okay? I'm Chinese, right? So I should be good at this. So he beat me like a third set tie break or something. So this is beyond the math, okay? Yeah. Cleve, you want to say something? You're the mic.
How many people know what the householder meetings are? How many don't? How many do not? Have you heard of the householder symposium? You all know what they are. Okay.
Okay.
Somebody say something. Every 4 years there's a conference started by a householder. I went to my first one as a graduate, who was a student here when I was in 1964. It's the most important conferences I've been to in my professional career. the 20th is coming up. The next one is going to be at Cornell in June, and I'm damn well going to try and make it to that. Hopefully. So that's a series of international meetings on numerical and linear algebra. Very important.
And that's where I learned the amount of alcohol this community can consume in one night is amazing.
One story of learning from others. So in my year, Joe Oliger was too busy to help us much. So Marcia Berger and Randy Levesque and I had to understand the work of Heinz Kreis. Now, Heinz Kreis was a great man and a terrible writer. I don't know how he was in German or Swedish, but in English he was terrible. And I just want to tell you a high point, a memory, you've probably forgotten that. But so once I went to Bill, who was 2 years more advanced in the same area, and said, Bill, I don't understand this paper by Gustafsson, Kreis, and Sundström. Can you tell me the key point in it? And he said, you see here on the 37th page, corollary 10.3. And by the way, that's the actual number, corollary 10.3. So he said, the main point of the paper is the remark that follows corollary 10.3.
I read that paper too. I wish I had asked the question. Yeah. But anyway, coming back to the Gatlinburg or the householder meeting, it was one of those meetings that were intimate. You know, it was not like a big Siam conference now. It probably had, 100 or 150 people, always in some retreat. So I organized one of them in Lake Arrowhead. So, we were in a retreat. And you really get to know the people. You often develop collaboration out of that. So I think that's the kind of conference you guys should try to go to. Okay.
Seymour Parter visited here. I took a reading course from me. He had me read that Kreis paper in German. That was really hard.
Anyway, any further comments?
About learning from each other. Good point. One of us who's had a straight and narrow career began teaching numerical analysis while he was a student here. So we always could get supplementary materials from lectures given by student, then Lloyd, now Nick Travell. I'm not the best soccer player on this panel, by the way. We once played a game, pickup game, and Tony took part.
Microphone.
Yeah, sorry. Tony's well known in the linear algebra community from householder meeting tennis matches with the second best tennis player in the field, Michael Saunders.
Yes. He has an unfair advantage. He's left-handed. He's the John McEnroe of our group.
So that soccer game included Ian Duff, Victor Pereira, me, a few others, and Tony, and we were all Duffers, not Tony. I found out later he was the best high school player in Hong Kong when he was a high school player.
Yeah. I was on the school team in high school. And then when I arrived at Caltech, I was roped in to be on the Caltech soccer team. There's nothing to write home about, This is Caltech soccer team, not the Caltech physics team, okay? So I think all the time I was there, we won one game, okay? So, but it was great camaraderie, Basically, there were very few Americans back in those days who played soccer. Okay, in fact, soccer was a new name to me. It was called football. Okay, but anyway, so
I see one person here in the audience. We haven't said them out. It's a piece of Sarah House furniture.
Michael, you want to say something, Michael? You want to say something? You were in Sarah House, right? You were in Sarah House.
Another.
Oh, thank you.
No, not that long. Keep it short.
I'll keep it short. But it's while Cleve and Rob are sitting here side by side. First of all, MATLAB is my absolute favorite language. No matter what function you write, you can come back next year and look at it and know what it's doing. But the best thing that happened to MATLAB was when Cleve and Rob and John Gilbert got together and added sparse matrices as a data type. So MATLAB really can solve very large problems efficiently. So well done, Cleve.
Thanks. That isn't why I mentioned you, is to get you up and do that.
I couldn't hear what.
But thank you.
Thanks very much. Just one more MATLAB comment. So, beginning, the company's formed. It has no customers yet. They made a sale to an assistant professor at MIT. Customer number one. They sent out postcards, probably to the SIAM membership list. Just a postcard. That's what they could afford. Quote at the bottom, MATLAB is the best piece of software ever written. R. Schreiber, NASA Ames Research Center.
Wow, great advertisement. So, any questions from the audience? Here's a chance, creator of MATLAB, all these distinguished people other than me. Okay, please. Here's your chance. No?
They want to know who won the bingo, so we're standing between them and bingo.
Well, the Stanford brand is not to keep quiet. Okay. Anyway, don't want to force the issue. I guess we have a reception or something, or yeah.
So
okay.
let's wrap it up. Thank you very much.